Hello everyone, welcome to Health Economics. This is Chapter 1. I'm your instructor, Norman, and I will be guiding you through to learn the subjects of health economics throughout the whole semester. So first of all, we will have these narrative videos for each chapter. The PowerPoint that's related to each chapter will guide you through the materials from each of the chapters in the books. So, in Chapter 1, we are going to cover some general topics in health economics. Well, first of all, we would like to talk about why we study health economics. And then we would like to talk about some of the issues we face or some challenges that we are going to resolve. And then we will try to talk about how the health economics related to public finance, how the governments deal with all these expenditures, and also at the same time we would like to talk a little bit about the welfare economics and comparing the US healthcare system to the other healthcare system around the world. So, why are we studying health economics? Well, first of all, the healthcare economy in the US is massive and expensive. We just can't ignore the fact that we are paying majority of our income on accessing these services. And second, this healthcare economy is somehow different than the basic economics that we learn because it's a little bit more complex for the fact that health is a major source of uncertainty and risk. So whenever we're trying to get access to these health services, most of the time we don't know we need to. For example, it could be something happens in our life that causing us to get these services for ourselves. So the demand for these services is a little bit more complex to derive. And number three, not only on a national level we are encountering this healthcare economy problems that we're spending a lot of money on it, but the rest of the world are also getting more and more involved in financing the healthcare system. Take a look at the United States. In 2008, the total GDP in the United States was approximately $14 trillion. So that's the total outputs that we produce in the United States. 1 out of every $6 spent in the United States in 2008 was actually spent on healthcare services. So that means every single $6 that we earn, on average, we spend 1 out of that $6 on paying the healthcare services in the country. To make a comparisons, in the year of 1960, we barely saved $1 out of every $20 in the United States toward these healthcare services. So it's a dramatic change on spending on these healthcare services. The trend has been similar in other countries around the world. However, no one out there is spending as much as we are in the United States. So the ultimate question we would like to answer is, well, what are we actually getting out from this money that we spend? Are we having a better life? Or are we having a healthier life or longer life? Let's take a look at the spending on healthcare services in the United States. In this diagram, you will see that we were spending approximately 5.5% of the GDP in 1960 in the United States versus, well, in the most recent year in the diagram, 2008, we are spending about 16% of the total GDP in the country. So in this table, you can actually see not only our GDP has been growing tremendously in the past years, but at the same time, the total expenditures of healthcare services also growing in the same time period. Not only that, just that, the speed of this growing on healthcare expenditures are actually faster than the growth of the GDP. So every year we are spending more and more on these healthcare services in the country. So the health economy is creating such a huge and massive market for these healthcare services. So how are those services different from the other smaller market that we study in principal economics? There are two major distinctions between the healthcare services comparing to other goods and services that we buy or purchase every day. Number one, it's very uncertain when we want to get those services or when we need it. Unlike other regular day products, we know always how much we would like to pay for the bananas. We know when we will need to buy the TV sets for our home, but it's very difficult for us to predict when we are going to need a heart surgery or maybe when we will need to take medicines to recover from our flu. Well, another problems for this health economies or healthcare services is some of these services are very contagious. Unlike other products, most of the time we enjoy or getting the benefits from the products or the service itself. But some of these healthcare services not only benefit us, but also sometimes it benefits the whole society. For example, if someone's skipping his flu shot, obviously, well, they have a higher chance to spread out the flu in the society. By taking this extra service in the society, obviously it will prevent the public or the society to get into the problem of having this flu spreading around. Well, because of this uncertainty, it makes it very difficult for economists to estimate the demand for these healthcare services. Well, in chapter 2, we are going to talk about the challenges that we face. But not only just that, because in general, people are risk-averse in life. Well, this uncertainty actually creates another new market in the healthcare economies. This is the insurance market. Because people are risk-averse in general, so they want to actually get the insurance in life in order to pay off those expensive bills in the future. However, in this insurance markets, we see two problems arise. Number one is the adverse selections, and number two is the moral hazard, which we are going to talk about in chapter 7 and chapter 10. Well, these two phenomena are basically what makes health policy very, very difficult. And in fact, also make this policy very, very challenging. Well, also because the healthcare services sometimes creating a positive externality to the society. For example, providing vaccinations will help preventing some kind of disease spreading in the society. Well, making these decisions, it's becoming very important because we want to make sure the society is actually having a social optimal levels of these services. And most of the cases, governments actually needs to intervene the markets in order to have this social optimal level of outputs for healthcare services. Well, because of the asymmetric information's problems in the health insurance market, and also the externality problem we face in the healthcare services market, governments becomes a very important agent in the country in order to solve those problems. Taking the case in the UK, Sweden, and Canada, the government actually responsible for majority of the healthcare expenditures. Comparing in the US, with the private healthcare systems, the government in the US actually responsible for about half of the healthcare services spending or expenditures in the country. So comparing to other foreign countries, well, obviously US is taking a smaller role. The fact that now people are living longer and more people entering to this aging populations, obviously it will bring a tremendous stress to the public health insurance system. But at the same time, government will still have to deal with the problems like, should they keep paying these expensive medical technologies? Well, obviously, we will expect the healthcare expenditure will keep growing and growing on the government balance sheets. But by the end of the day, obviously, the taxpayer who are the ones who pay for those bills. Well, in the past decades, there are many questions has been arise in the public health debates. Some of the questions are normative, some of them are positive. Well, normative questions basically related to ideas of how the world should be or things should be done. This question can hardly be answered by economic analysis because it really depends on who you are and what you stand for or what you believe in. On the other hand, we would be focusing more on the positive questions. Those are the questions that relate to how the world actually is. Unlike the normative questions, these questions are amenable to careful economic reasonings. So throughout the whole semester, we will try to answer most of our questions and try to find answer to these positive questions. We will leave some rooms to discuss about the normative questions between chapters. Well, taking the case in the United States, patients sometimes pay out of pockets for routine healthcare services like flu shots or health checkups. However, comparing to other foreign countries like Canada or UK, patients almost never pay out of pockets for those basic services. In the United States, some people are not even eligible for government insurance. And also at the same time, they can't even afford to buy the private insurance. If we look around the world, most of the developed countries, it's rarely seen these uninsurance problems. So insurance is either provided for free by the governments or provided by a mix of public and private insurer. Because of the uniqueness of the US healthcare markets, well, much of our empirical evidence will be coming from the US. Well, studying all this example or evidence in the US actually help us understand how the private healthcare market is working. Well, also, it helps us study the problems that we have in these markets, such as adverse selections, moral hazards, and monopolistic firm. By understanding this problem, of course, it's going to help us to understand what's the motive for other countries to operate the system in different ways. So throughout the whole semester, we will be focusing on studying the evidence in the United States, and hopefully by doing the project paper, you can understand a little bit more why other countries pick other systems to operate.